Well, hello there, everyone. It's Monday. Time for a new week, I guess, depending on the way you look at it. So that means it's time for the Q&A here on OTRS Central. Reminder, if you want your questions answered on this Monday Q&A, you just tweet them to @OTRS Central. So let's get started here. Let's see here. Simply Recommend asks, top 5 WWE performers who got sabotaged by backstage politics. Sabotaged by backstage politics. CM Punk. I think that's fair to say. Vader. I think that's also very fair to say. Who else really got sabotaged by backstage politics? To a certain degree, Bret Hart. Back when maybe it was his time, Hogan didn't want to work with him, didn't want to do the honors for him. So you could say that sabotaged him a little bit. Any number of people that ran up against the Clique. So there's been a lot of people who've gotten sabotaged perhaps by backstage politics. Kofi Kingston obviously got sabotaged by Randy Orton's backstage politics. So there's been many over the years. Those are some of the ones that stand out to me at this particular moment, just as I think of them off the top of my head. Preston Helms wants to know, what did WWE screw up more, the Nexus angle or the Summer of Punk? Well, they were both pretty bad in back-to-back years. They were terrible screw-ups. But man, they really screwed the pooch on the Summer of Punk. I mean, you were even in a way ripping off from ROH with this, with the same individual. And that was the shit that you came up with. It was just bad. Here was an opportunity to create the new top guy for your company long term. Maybe looking back, it's a good thing it didn't happen, perhaps. But maybe if it would have happened, Punk would still be there at a full-time basis. You know, you're talking about Punk being all the talk of the wrestling world and even some of the mainstream world after Money in the Bank 2011. What's going to happen? So you bring him back 8 fucking days later because we've got SummerSlam to sell. And then by the end of SummerSlam, he beats Cena only to have Kevin Nash come out and jackknife powerbomb him. So that way ADR could cash in and become the champion. Then you send CM Punk at Triple H, where he loses to Triple H, even though a few weeks later Triple H is removed as the on-screen authority figure any damn ways. And then he's losing, eating pinfalls to The Miz and R-Truth. And God, that was just so bad. The Nexus angle went poorly. That was screwed up big time, but I will always assert that the CM Punk Summer of Punk in 2011 was botched and screwed up even worse. I mean, that was just terrible. They brought him back 8 days later. You know, this is something that was supposed to be planned out, and that's what they planned out. It was terrible. Principal NYNB, we know your thoughts on Lesnar as a part-time champion, but what were your thoughts on The Rock back in 2013 as champion? It was a nice short-term kind of nostalgia run, knowing, unfortunately, what it was going to lead to at WrestleMania 29. Biggest difference is that Rock appeared a lot more as a champion than Lesnar did. And it was for a much shorter term. So I have much fewer problems, or less problems in general, with Rock as a part-time champion than I do currently with Lesnar as a champion. Because they really need Lesnar, and they really need that belt, because that's the way their product and company is structured, and they just don't have it. They don't have him, and they don't have it. So it's a big difference, to me anyways. Mark Whalen, 67. If the MMA fight between CM Punk and Jason David Frank happens, should Punk be forced to dress as Lord Zed? Maybe he should dress up as Alpha. What about that? Yeah, Alpha. Let's see here. Michael_Corbin. In your opinion, who's the hottest non-black chick in wrestling? Oh, of all time to me, it was Trish Stratus before she lost her ass and lost her weight and her blonde hair. Yeah, that was the bitch of bitches. Holy shitballs. But now I would go with Layla. Yeah, that's my flavor right there. I'd love to rock her Moroccan ass. That would be the hottest non-black chick in wrestling in my money anyways right now. Rampager213, what moment of world history would you have liked to have been a part of? The drafting of the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution. Probably the drafting of the Constitution. Because I would want to do everything that I could to make sure that slavery was outlawed in 1787 or 89 and not in 1863 with the Emancipation Proclamation. And then the subsequent amendments to kind of follow up on that. I will want to make sure that the Constitution actually followed through on everything that the Declaration of Independence was supposedly supposed to be about. When people talk about the Constitution as this great document of American history that shows the awesomeness of America, I would say bullshit. The document that should have shown the true greatness of what this country could have been, was supposed to be, and its founding principles was the Declaration of Independence. I would want to fight and make sure that I'm the one drawing up ultimately the Constitution, making sure that the Constitution goes in lockstep with the Declaration of Independence and truly provided, freedoms for all, not just some, and not just because of colors and genders. That would be my answer. Michael Corvin has another question. If 80s Hogan versus Triple H of 03 versus Cena today in a three-way dance happened, does anyone win, or are there endless two counts? I have talked about this on numerous occasions. Triple H is a skillful master politician, and he married into it. John Cena has become himself a tremendous backstage politicker, master politician. But there are entirely different levels between Breakfast Club politics and Hogan politics. Ask Triple H how that works in 2002. We've seen how this plays out. Triple H main events WrestleMania 18. Nobody gives a shit about it. Wins the title from Jericho. Nobody gives a shit about it. By the time the next month comes around and it's Backlash time, he's dropping that belt to Hogan when Triple H was designed to have a long run as champion. Hogan politics trump all. If Hogan in his prime took on Cena in his prime, Hogan's winning, period. If you believe otherwise, you are a tool. Triple H and Cena, great politicians, skillful, almost masterful at it. But there is one true king, brother, and that is the almighty Hulkster, dude. Period. If you think otherwise, again, you're a tool. Michael Corvin also wants to know, can Triple H bury someone so deep that even he can't dig them out? Sure. We don't think he's ever done that before. I mean, frankly, you could argue in a way that he did that with CM Punk. At a time where CM Punk was the hottest thing going, at a time where the indication, all signs were that you needed to go with Punk as the top guy. And here comes Triple H at Night of Champions 2011 to bury him and not put him over when it was right for business. And then he and Punk team up against Miz and Truth, and you got Punk losing there. And, I don't know if Punk ever fully recovered. I mean, he got to a certain point, but he never got to that same point. So you could look right there and say he buried him so much just in a short amount of time that Punk never fully recovered. Let's not even look at anybody else. And then when Triple H takes over for Vince, do you think he'll do more harm than good for the company? I think to the people that sit there and point to NXT and say that, Triple H has run that so well, so this is what he's doing. I don't fully agree. I don't really see where you get that. Because when I was watching NXT, and I've now stopped, so to be fair, I haven't watched it in a couple of months, but for a reason, when I watched NXT, in a lot of ways, it mirrored the active product. Just a lot of random matches, not much in the way of storytelling. Yeah, there was more of an emphasis perhaps on the in-ring action, but that's, again, something for the internet to jack off to. That doesn't mean that the wrestling fan base en masse as a whole, especially those casual mainstream fans, are going to like that. So who's to say it would be any better at all? Triple H is incredibly involved with the decision-making processes of the company's creative product right now. He might not be the ultimate say-so, that may be Vince, but Triple H is incredibly involved. And look where it's at now. So where do we ultimately get off thinking that Triple H is just going to make it so much better? I just don't get it. Real Ziggy 23 wants to ask, in your opinion, do you think Triple H would be better running WWE than Vince McMahon? I mean, maybe if you believe that Triple H being, 2.5 decades younger and bringing a fresher, more youthful perspective would be helpful, perhaps. But I don't see where that's necessarily a guarantee of anything at all. Vince has 3 decades of running the company, so he has a lot of experience. He does understand what it's like to be the CEO. He understands what it's like to be the HNIC of all that you see when it comes to WWE. Triple H does not. It's an entirely different perspective with an entirely different role. And I'm not sure Triple H would be prepared for that. And I'm not sure he would do any better job. I'm not saying he couldn't, because God knows at this point, Vince McMahon today is much worse than even Vince of 5, let alone 10 years ago. But that's not a guarantee that Triple H would do any better. Let's see here. Keep going. The Den Syndrome. Did Triple H intentionally sabotage Scott Steiner, and do you prefer 90s or 2000s HBK? At that time, with Steiner and Triple H, I don't think either one of them were really 100% healthy. I don't know that they ever really were going to work together all that well. Maybe Triple H really didn't want to work with them all that well because he didn't care. I'm not going to say that Triple H didn't try. I don't know that he intentionally sabotaged Steiner. Because Steiner in his own ways was bad during that WWE run. We have to face facts here. Steiner sabotaged himself some too by not being very good. But both of them weren't really 100%. I mean, some of the dynamics of it could have worked really well. But again, it was kind of one of those things where they were making it known that this was a WCW guy, in a lot of ways, that he's a peon here, and now WWE were the kings. So, hey, I'm not going to go so far as to say he intentionally sabotaged him. Let's see here. King Soldier. I knew this question was coming eventually. What do you think about Punk in UFC? Well, I did a video about this. I'll put the link to it in the description box down below, talking about my thoughts on Punk signing with UFC and, what it really means for MMA and the UFC as a whole. So make sure you check that out. Thanks again to you guys that submitted your questions for this Q&A. I'll be back Wednesday with the Wild Wednesday Q&A. So try to give me some fun questions and not just questions based off of Steiner or Sid or Sin Cara or somebody tearing quads or Dino Bravo being dead. I know, I'll still get those questions, but try to expand. Let's really try to have some fun. We can open it up to non-wrestling topics. I don't care. Give me some shit to work with, and I'll give you some damn gold, okay, people? All right, later.